Or is that me for now?
Well, we can call it to order now. It's 5:30. Everybody's here.
Yep.
Okay, we should be live.
Okay. So to help with just the running of things, I'll say we're calling the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 30th. Speaking is Melanie Metzger. I'm the interim director at the moment, / assistant director. And with us today are board members Brigitte Pryor, Donna Dixon, Jalray Gauss, and Rebecca Delgazo is our administrative assistant who will be helping with minutes and running the back end. So first order of business is public comment. Is there any public comment, Rebecca?
We have not received any public comment. If anyone from the public wishes to make a comment, they are asked to send an email to publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org, publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. I apologize. And also, you could also leave a voicemail at 518-290-6905. Both accounts are monitored at all times, and public comments will be read during designated times of the meetings. We do ask that you leave your name and address to identify yourself as an Albany resident. Thank you.
So we have nothing under unfinished business right now because this is the first meeting of this committee. So our first order of new business is assigning a chair. That is let you guys run with that one. That's for you guys to decide. So I'll let our board members start the discussion on that.
I'll suggest Brigitte as the chair.
Brigitte, would you like to accept?
I'll accept that if everybody's in favor.
Okay, I will. Do we need a second?
We do need a second.
Okay, I'm happy to second.
And any discussion? Or any other, I should say, any other nominations for chair of the committee?
I guess maybe I should put a reason forth, I guess. Do we have to do that? Well, I mean, I just think Brigitte has a lot of experience. She's been here a long time, and I'm definitely confident in her being able to lead us in the right direction in this. I'm looking, forward. I'm looking excited to learn, so.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that being said, is there any other discussion on the matter? Hearing none. Let's take a vote. Should we just do a voice vote?
Yeah, thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Brigitte is the chair of the Ad Hoc Executive Search Committee. Executive Director.
Thank you. Yeah.
So at this point, I will turn the meeting over to you.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. As Melanie said, this is our first meeting for the ad hoc executive director search. So we're actively looking for a new executive director. I don't think we need to go into executive session. Do we have any candidates as of yet that have applied?
So right, the reason we're forming this committee is because the board has to make the decision on how the position is going to be posted. It hasn't been posted yet because you guys need to make that decision on, are we posting it just as the board posting it on your own behalf, or are you looking to hire a consultant, consulting agency that does director level board hirings?
My feeling is, and I'm just going by what we just did for Albany Housing when our executive director left to, get a consultant, but get a consensus on what we're looking for. Talking with the consultant, the characteristics that we we feel, and anybody can jump in, but I know one of the main things that we were looking for, that they, live in Albany or have some ties. I think that was a hard not a hard sell, but one of the
Yeah.
one of the jewels that we wanted to have.
Brigitte, may I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
With the housing authority position, were you referring to that was a requirement for the housing authority ED to live in Albany or have ties?
No, that was a national search.
Okay, but they were required to move to Albany.
Yes.
Right.
Well, yes. Yeah, they would have. Yeah, they would have to live in Albany. But yeah, that's a requirement that they have to live in Albany.
Yeah.
But I think we wanted someone that was actually had ties
Sure.
to Albany to understand how our library ran. So I think that a consultant would be the way to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys did the last time?
Yeah, with Scott. Yeah.
So
could I
yep.
Sure.
offer some input? Because I was on the board last time we did a search for an executive director, and it was a successful search. That's when we hired Scott. I don't remember if we had a consulting firm. That being said, I would like to review what we did last time and timelines.
Right.
Just because we don't have that stuff. At the beginning of the pandemic, I shredded all my board stuff while I was cleaning my house because I had nothing to do. But I'd like to review at least the timelines, but I am very, very strongly in favor of hiring a consulting firm for this. As you know, I am a librarian. I'm very closely tied to the field, and I do keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on nationally and statewide. And I think that it's for practical considerations that a consulting firm will be very useful, very helpful, very help us be efficient with the search. But also I know that it is a hallmark in the field and in the profession of this is a serious search. We are serious about getting, excellent candidates, being able to state what our other goals are, which certainly we want to attract diversity candidates as well. And so I think, that's where that's one of the ways that a consulting firm would be incredibly useful and valuable to the board and to this ad hoc committee in getting the search launched and managing it.
Yeah. Ray, do you have any other input?
I'm definitely in favor of the consulting firm. Like everyone's saying, it's just a matter of putting our criteria down on what, we would like in a candidate and, having meeting with the firm or even selecting the appropriate firm for us. So I think we're all in consensus with that. I mean, the last process gave us Scott. So, I think everyone's in favor of a consulting firm and yeah.
Yeah, Melanie, you had something?
I'll let Donna speak first.
Well, I just have one follow-up question to that, and I'm glad to hear that, to know that my fellow committee members are, and the chair agree. Is there in terms of process, is there, again, I don't remember what we did with the search for Scott. I think we had a consulting firm, but is there with being newly back on the board, is there a financial threshold in terms of what we would pay such a consulting firm that we would have to RFP it?
So with my recollection, I don't believe it was actually done through a consultant the last time.
I don't think it was either.
Because I remember I was actually on the committee for it. So
right.
I remember everything being posted internally and through the board.
Okay.
And resumes and applications coming in directly to us.
Okay.
I will say there's a couple things that we do that should probably be discussed. Donna brought up a good point, how much, this is your decision on how much you guys are willing to expend or what your cap is for the consulting. Since I haven't done one before, I don't know what the going rate is for consultants. So that would be something that we'd have to look into. The one that's used most often and specifically with libraries is Bradbury Miller and Associates. Here, I'll give you their website information here. They're the go-to. They even have individuals, because they represent individual directors as well. I will say that there's a couple things to think about. Right now, we are with Scott and his predecessor, Carol Nersinger. The position was modified from a library director to the executive director. And with that being said, with the executive director position, an MLS, the Masters of Library Science, was preferred but not required. A comparable degree was acceptable with that, which could have been an MPA, is generally what's the acceptable alternative for that. That was specifically done. I was hired 4 months before Carol left. So I don't know exactly how the search or what came up with Carol when it was being searched, but the position was changed to executive director versus library director because of that. They wanted to have that option of having somebody with an MPA rather than the Masters of Library Science degree. So the job could be posted in either way. It could be posted as a library director 5, or it could be posted as an executive director. So that is one decision that needs to be made. The second one is the residency requirement might be difficult. That really hinders who you can get for a candidate at this level. And I say that because we are the largest school district library in the state of New York. That puts us at a different level. We are a small government with a budget of just over $10 million. So that is something to consider when looking for somebody. This isn't like a library director of one of the smaller towns that, is living within the town, and you're getting somebody who's more of a library director 3 position. There's very few people who are at that qualification level of a library director 5. So putting that residency requirement could be very hindering for an application pool. Just putting it out there. I know it's desirable, but that could definitely hinder a lot of people.
Was it a requirement for Scott?
It was a requirement for Scott.
Okay.
I know when I was hired, it was a recommendation, and a signing bonus would have been offered to me had I lived in the city of Albany, a one-time signing bonus. But I declined, and I do live out in the suburbs.
Okay.
Well, I guess, as you said, it was the distinction between Scott's predecessor and himself. So I would want to see, because I've never seen his resume or the, what's the distinction between executive director and the library director.
So they're very similar in breadth of experience. The library director requires the MLS. Mm-hmm. The executive director gives you the option for the ability to hire somebody with an MPA. Now, being an individual in library administration, I can tell you right now that an MPA would be very desirable because we have a very robust librarian understaff. Myself, I'm at a library 4 position, librarian 4 position. We have 3 librarian 3s, which, like I said, in many of the towns and municipalities throughout the state of New York, library director 3 is their highest level. We have 3 library 3s, librarian 3 levels a librarian 4 level. So having somebody with the MPA with the business acumen to run such a large organization is something to take into consideration because we have the robust librarian staff.
Mhm. Well, certainly
at the
would
end.
open up the pool.
Yeah. Do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jared.
I'm sorry, Bridget, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to just make note of just some of the things that Scott were saying and just echo him in reference to his experience and not having that in library science, the master's in library science. So I really just want to remind people of just, you know, just from his point of view, and definitely, I mean, he hit on a whole lot. I do like the idea of keeping an executive, you know, director, because it does open up the pool and gives us a wider variety of candidates that would be eligible. And just a lot of the things that he was speaking about in reference to his day-to-day task and what his experience is in that position. I think that was very heavy. And he definitely did a good job of really, to me personally, just hitting home the position itself and what he felt he did in his position on a day-to-day basis, what it required. That's, you know, that's all.
No, Scott does have the MLS, or
Right.
so that was something when it came down to
Oh, I
it.
thought you said he didn't. Okay.
No, he
Well, I
did
mean,
have the MLS. We just, that when the position was posted, the option was you could have either the MLS or an MPA.
Okay, so I'm just referencing our conversation that we had where I forget what meeting that was. It might have been a policy and was it? I think it might have been a policy meeting where he was just commenting on the his job, the degrees, and what it would require in reference to actually running the library and executive director position. So that's what I was referencing, what Scott was speaking of.
Correct. And I think there was at one point a request for him to start working on his MPA, because I know he was doing that on the request of the board. So
Okay.
he was in the process of getting his MPA.
Okay.
So, and I know he was very vocal about it. He was not shy in sharing that opinion, that he believes that with the size of our organization, an MPA would be extremely relevant to the position, and that the MLS was not necessarily needed. And this is going back and forth. If you're in the library industry, it's a very hot topic right now.
Yeah.
A very controversial topic. Right now, the director position for NYLA, the New York State Library Association, is also in the same boat. They're looking for an executive director, and theirs was also posted without the requirement for an MLS. And it's about 50-50 split.
Yeah. What was, because I know there's a lot of precedent for directors at this level to have an executive degree, not necessarily a library degree. And, I know that there's an open search for Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, which is probably the closest peer organization to us in the state. And I'm interested to see, I haven't looked at that posting. I think it would be good for all of us to take a peek at it. But I don't remember whether that required an MLS or if they allowed an executive degree of another type.
So let me just give you, I've been kind of having this conversation with several people. Since October 18th, there are 12 library director positions open across New York State, including the executive director for NYLA. As Donna referred, Buffalo Erie County has opened up their director position. Schenectady has opened up their director position, which is a very similar regional library. So,
have we had any interest in-house?
There's one person I know, and I will leave that up to them to divulge that information.
Right. I just wanted to know if we had any interest.
They're still thinking of, they're considering, they're not quite sure yet.
Oh,
If they're going to
okay.
apply.
I didn't, yeah, I was just wondering if there was any.
But
No.
we have had several other people regionally reach out to us
Okay.
with an interest. Let me see. Trying to find really quick.
I'm looking at Buffalo and Erie.
Yeah.
And Bradbury Miller is handling that search as well.
Yep.
They are requiring an MLS.
Okay.
And 10 years of professional library experience. So this is a, very comparable.
Right. Which is what I would recommend as well. I would recommend at least 10 years library experience and preferably like 5 of administration at a director or assistant director level.
Yeah.
You would want somebody preferably that has overseen multiple library system with multiple locations. And not just a single location. That's usually going to be desirable for this type of position, since we do have 7 locations.
So as Donna mentioned, the time frame and what you guys did the last time. So do you have the criteria of what was needed when Scott applied, or something to that effect?
Let me see.
Like a roadmap.
Give me one
Or RFP going out.
So like I said, we didn't do an RFP because we did it internal. So we didn't do a consultant.
Right.
Give me 1 second and let me see if I can bring up.
Because I'm assuming that we want this done as soon as possible. So
yes.
If well, you're going to be in there forever, Melanie, until next year. If we had to do a search for a consultant, then that would be RFP, and that would take some time, and then the board, we'd have to go back to the board, the full board, and get permission, and then all that good stuff.
So one good thing we have going for us is we're a civil service organization. So whatever we do has to be based off of the civil service job specs. So that's what I'm trying to pull up for you right now, because there's a civil. Let's see.
So yeah, so maybe we can critique or squeak it or whatever, revise it, the civil service requirement.
So I misspoke. Looking at the executive director job posting, they did require an MLS.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. I believe I was wondering why they did that. Let me see if I can share my
So
screen.
maybe if we get an ideal candidate, this is just a thought, that if they don't come, like maybe they started the MLS, or you could say, they have to finish it within X amount of time, or, if they started it, if it's an ideal candidate. But preferably.
I think there's a little bit of a, you kind of bump up against a conflict there, because if the requirement is going to be 8 to 10 years of full-time professional library experience, some of which has to be administrative, that it follows that that person would have to have an MLS to have gotten that level of experience to begin with.
Oh, okay.
So we'd have to completely revise the minimum qualifications, which again, in civil service, I think is a pretty tough thing to do.
No, I'm saying, but if it is like set in stone, then it's set in stone. So there's nothing that we have to do.
Right. So looking, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So right here, it does say graduation from a registered college or university accredited by the ALA to grant the master's degree in library science. And then, and you do have to have eligibility and application for New York State Public Librarians professional certificate. So this allows us to hire from out of state. Should somebody come
Yeah.
in from out of state, but within their hiring, they have to get the certificate.
Yeah.
Which is easy enough if they're at that
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's literally just paying a fine or a fee.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, exactly.
Quick question.
Yes.
So quick question. So going through the firm, we would still have to abide by these guidelines here, correct?
Correct.
But other
But
guidelines.
they are
can be
able
done.
to, usually what the benefit of going through a firm is they have the knowledge and they have the experience of culling through resumes and applications to see really where the experience and level of expertise lie. And they can cull the applications and give you they can do the best first run through and then give you that first set of candidates to start interviewing.
Right.
Yeah, and they also do, I think this is probably optional, but I have been a reference for someone who was hired through Bradbury Miller. And so they'll do the first reference check also. And so they do a lot of the heavy lifting of screening and, as Melanie said, going through the first run, making sure that they meet the minimum requirements. And firms like that, I haven't worked with Bradbury Miller in that capacity, but I worked with Jack Farrell Associates, which only does academic libraries. They don't do public. I was hoping that might be an option, but they're the go-to, like Bradbury Miller is the go-to for public library directors. Jack Farrell is the go-to for university press positions, which is where I came from. And they have kind of a pool of people that they go, hey, that they go and headhunt and say, I think I have the perfect thing for you. So they've got those deep
They can make it go
connections
quicker
to
because they actually have the portfolio of candidates
Right.
ready to go.
Right.
That's another reason to go with them because they're usually can be a quicker process.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so the firm or the RFP would be the two options, correct?
Mhm.
Or the third option would be just putting it out the way we did but we would need to get board approval for that, correct? Putting it out the way we did the treasurer position?
No, it would be a simple civil service posting for us. So
Right.
Okay.
so we could just because to post something internally for the organization, somebody has to be at that level to apply internally. So it would be an automatic external posting because there's nobody who holds that level
right,
at the
right.
moment.
Yeah. So even if there was an internal candidate, we have to do the entire process,
Correct.
which
We
makes
have to do
sense. That is civil service.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So RFP and it goes through the board or agency and they give us their however many filtered down candidates that they have that we choose from.
Well, they still post it nationally. So it goes up,
Okay.
it will go up on NYLA, it will go up on ALA job list. And it will, regional, usually once it's posted to ALA, the other state organizations pick up on it and will post it as well.
Yeah.
But
it's
in
a lot
reference to
that-
filtering it down to a few candidates that then we choose from, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They're going to do, as Melanie said, all the heavy lifting, weed out the bad apples, not waste our time, and then just give us the best out of the 3 or 4 candidates. So then we can go from there.
I wanted to see something really quickly.
So I guess the how much Brad, what did you say, Brad Berry
Bradbury Miller.
charges?
I'd be happy to do the work on that and reach out to them if you'd like.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Sometimes it's a percentage of salary. I think that's probably the most common.
like I said, I haven't gone through a process with a consultant.
Yeah. I think it's generally a percentage. What's our current threshold for something we can purchase, so to speak, without having to go for RFP?
Without having to go through RFP under 35,000, which it's not
Okay.
going to get anywhere near that.
Yeah.
Up to 8,000 or 7,500 So 7,500, it's
Mhm.
at the discretion of the appropriate staff or board member. So if they're under that, you can do that. If it's between 7,500 and 10,000, we just have to get 3 quotes. And that's just going out to other organizations and seeing what their pricing is as well.
Okay.
That would be great, Donna. Thank you, because then we
sure.
can, by next week for our board member meeting, then we can bring it to the board, and then if they approve it. Oh, it's not next week?
2 weeks.
Oh,
2 weeks.
I know, I
okay.
am so confused with
I thought it
what
was next
day
week.
is when December
Oh.
starts.
No,
It's
Oh, the second, right, the second Tuesday. Next week is just the first,
first
okay,
Tuesday, yep.
right, okay.
This,
But still,
It
anyway,
helps
we'll
us
have,
out.
we'll have that information by the time our board meeting is, and then we can get approvals and all that good stuff, so.
Okay, well, I'll take that as an action item. I'll start with Bradbury Miller and reach out to them and kind of see what their fee structure is and, get an idea of, what their process is on their side dealing with us, how do they work? And then if we need to go further and get more quotes from other organizations, we can discuss that.
Right, because just to recap, so that,
just a couple quotes though, just so we can have something to compare it to.
Yep.
Yeah.
and if for some reason the board doesn't, the entire board doesn't go with what we discuss, if there's discussion, then the internal, it would just be the civil service, requirement, that you would put that out, like if we were doing it in-house, just, the board, it would just be the civil service criteria, and we put it out there on, as you just said, mentioned the library things, all that, okay. All right.
And we would do that, and it would, but the work of culling through the applications.
Right,
would
right.
fall on you guys.
And background checks and all that good stuff, and just verifying everything that they said on the application is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that would be up to us to do, the committee, correct?
yes.
Okay, just we did the treasurer. Okay.
Yeah. So more and more in favor of the consultant.
Yeah, well, particularly with Marjorie retiring, so.
Yeah.
That's a, an experienced pair of hands that we're not going to have at our disposal this time around. They're, limited.
Hopefully it's done before she leaves.
Yes, I hope so.
That's the intent.
Well, I will say the process wasn't so bad. But I will say that it wasn't so bad. I actually had a good time doing it. So
It is. So generally, I know what the way it was done the last time around is, I believe 5 individuals were picked from the first go around. And then that list was, we did, I believe, phone interviews for the first round with everybody. And then that list was culled down to 3.
Was it 3? I thought it was 4.
It was 4. You're right. It was culled down to 4. And I think we were willing to do 5, but one of the applicants really tanked their interview. So then it was brought in, and the process that was done was they had a interview and presentation to the board, and that lasted, I think, like 2 to 3 hours. It was a long interview process. Then there was a break for lunch, and they took the candidate out for lunch. And then the candidate did a presentation to staff. It was made available to do a presentation about their, and the topic was selected by the board. I forget exactly what the topic was. It like your, ideal future library or whatnot, or what you think.
I think Scott, we did maybe a choice of topics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you this because Scott, having gone through that process and similar processes with some of his, when he was looking for other positions, he did mention, they jokingly refer to it as librarian Hunger Games. It's a little bit of a daunting thing. So he said he would recommend personally that if we did a 2-step interview process of that nature, that the lunch is, they can provide recommendations for lunch to the individual, to the candidate, but let them do lunch on their own to give them
Some breathing,
room and break, because otherwise they were interviewing for like 8 hours straight.
Right.
Yeah, we did, and with COVID, now that's going to be a consideration as well. Maybe they don't, they may not want to go out to an on-site lunch or have a catered lunch, or whatever. And, I agree. I've been through that too. And you do need a little bit of breathing room. I think it makes it, I think just a more humane day for everybody, including the board and the staff.
I do want to remember, and we did a tour, because I took each candidate on a tour of all 7 libraries.
Okay. Oh gosh, that's right. I forgot about that. So it was a very, very, very long day.
It was a very long day.
And one of the things that we might think about doing, the last time I went through an interview like this myself, with having to do a presentation, it was to the search committee and staff at the same time. So it wasn't 2 separate presentations, it was just one.
And with the ability to do virtual, we can easily do that. We could live stream the interview.
Yep.
To the board and to staff.
Yeah, and that is also another consideration that we might have to deal with, is not doing an in-person interview.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, I'm very a proponent of, the staff, definitely being involved in the candidate, because they're going to be working with the person. And so their personalities, should be able to, gel or, have a cohesiveness or, some camaraderie. So, if we can try to integrate that as much as possible in the process. So, okay, we have the consensus on, we're going to, Donna's going to look into the fee for Bradbury and also get more quotes, 2 other quotes. We have the civil service criteria, just in case if our consultant goes awry, we know what the next step we have to do. So I think we're in pretty good shape for our first meeting. So
now, one of the recommendations I have, because the board doesn't need to vote, especially with it under, if it's within or under that monetary threshold.
Right.
So do we want to set
another meeting?
Well, my thought is there's the executive meeting is next week. Executive committee meeting is next week. So maybe if a decision is made on going one way or the other, we can either present at that meeting, or it can be just brought up as an agenda item. And if it sounds good to everybody, then we can get it posted. So that way we're not waiting 2 weeks to post it. We're only waiting 1 week.
So let's take a look at our schedules, right, everybody? Maybe we should just take a glance just to.
Well, I'm in favor of bringing it to if we can get that information as soon as possible, bringing it to executive session. You said the executive committee is meeting next week? Melanie?
Yes. I'm sorry. Somebody just chatted me with something here.
Oh, okay.
What? I'm sorry.
They actually have the job posting from 2014. So they were just sending me that to show exactly what was posted.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's very helpful.
It supposedly said, and I'm trying to think of where this is. Reading it here. The individual told me, let's see. Minimum qualifications, graduation from a college or university registered by the New York State Education Department to grant degrees with a master's degree or higher. So they actually did not require the,
okay.
Give you guys that link as well here, so you can see it. It's on that page. It's the second listing down. but so I was correct actually that when it was posted, it was the master's degree and not necessarily the master's of library science. So if somebody had the MPA, it would have been sufficient.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was a requirement to live in Albany.
And it was a requirement. That was something that was added though for Scott's position. I know the previous director also did live in Albany. But it was not a requirement by that person. It was added after the fact. So when they posted the position,
I'm a little confused because if the civil service L5 or ED position says it must have an MLS, and that's the New York State Education Department requirement for an executive director or L5.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the distinction.
Okay.
So we pulled that because we're currently with the HR audit. We're currently pulling all of the old job specs, and this was for the executive director. We couldn't find the most recent update. As you said, when I showed 2009 was the most recent update of it. So I believe we did. It was a required or request of civil service. And since it was the same level of education, it was just a difference of degree. And because it was an executive director versus a library director 5. So this is almost identical to a library director 5. It's just the naming it of executive director versus library director. I know it's semantics and terminology, but that was the determination between the two.
Yeah, and it's really kind of deeper than that because it is, as you observed, Melanie, with the NILA executive director job, I've been following those postings too, and people are kind of losing their minds over an MLS not being required.
And they did that for ALA as well. I mean, that's right. Yeah. This is an ongoing discussion and
So I just want to clear things up. So for the civil service posting, I tried to pull that one up. So is that one the MLS requiring the MLS?
The one on the civil service website?
Is for the executive director? You just had it up there.
The one I had up was one that we pulled. I have to find where Marjorie pulled it from, but it was when we were searching because the one she pulled, I'll have to find where she got it from because we tried pulling all of them from the civil service website because they now have all the job specs listed, but they did not have the executive director position listed on the city civil service website.
It was the library director that they have listed.
It was the library director 5 they had listed.
Okay.
So I'll ask her after this meeting where she found the executive director.
And that's the one that Scott applied to, was executive correct? The executive director.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this one is 09. Okay, so the executive committee meets December the 7th, the next Tuesday.
And I can, I'll have to talk to Sarah to see if that can be added as an agenda item.
And so the personnel committee is currently reviewing all of these, including the executive director job description.
I believe so.
Am I understanding that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, they actually I think they already reviewed all of administrative titles. They decided that we're going to meet with, they are going to meet with civil service to discuss how to make edits and how to get them completely updated accurately. Because I myself have always noticed that the ED position was never, the title job spec was never on this, Albany civil service site. Okay. So, and there's a few other errors with things that just we don't have anymore.
Right.
So we are meeting with civil service, but the personnel committee decided that they're just basically gonna write little notes of things that they'd like to see changed, but they already did go through all the admin positions.
Okay. So, you know, as a matter of process, for civil service, do we need to wait until the civil service position has been updated? Because no matter whether we have a consultant or not, it's a civil service position and the job description needs to be correct.
Right.
And updated. So do we need to wait for that to happen before we post? Or before we hire someone before we hire a consulting firm?
I don't believe so. I think that's because, like I said, with if we want to make the application for executive director, then it could stay as is, because the last time it was posted,
Okay.
it was just, for some reason, it's just not on the civil service website, but they probably in their files have.
Okay.
Because we have a classification for both, a library director and executive director. So it's there, we just can't get a hold of it right this second.
Correct.
The actual posting.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So,
because I think they have the library director is listed as a library director 4, actually, on the city civil service list of job specs, which technically is the level I'm at.
Okay. Okay. You know, I'm just looking at the thing that you had posted from, that you had grabbed from 2014, Melanie.
Yep.
And doing a little bit of a closer read, and it's still, you know, it kind of goes back to that. You can't get 8 years of administrative library experience without having an MLS.
Correct.
So it's kind of moot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So everybody's clear on what we're going to do with the NMLS and the library director for. Okay.
So are we going to send us a copy of the executive director position posting once we find it? Because that's what we're looking for, right? The executive director civil service posting, or no? I thought we were looking for that one.
The one that we just looked at was the 2009 executive director one.
Will that one suffice?
Then they had the 14. That's the one that Scott applied to, right? The 14. So I think we're working with the 14.
Okay.
We're working off of what was posted in 2014.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Which is an executive director position. We just have to find the updated job spec from civil service.
From civil service.
Okay.
But like Donna said, it's kind of a moot point in either case, because to have 8 years of library experience, you have to have the MLS.
Right.
You have to have without an MLS.
Right. Okay.
Do we have the option to tweak that a little bit, or does any changing, do any edits need to go through?
That's what the policy or the personnel committee is currently trying to get in touch with civil service department on, to see if it's a minor change, if it's like a lateral change. So 8 years of library experience or 8 years of administration experience of a nonprofit organization, if it's a lateral equivalency, if that can be done, or does it have to go through official civil service commission, which would they meet once a month to approve any of those changes. So that would add to.
Right. And I feel like we're going around that again.
Yeah.
Is it possible to put like a conditional like clause in there just to temporarily post it with the edits, like upon approval or something like that, you know?
I don't believe you can.
Okay.
They're very strict.
Okay.
Because there has to be with any of the job postings, there's the exam that has to be taken, and at that level, the exam is usually a culling of your resume and providing a CV, curriculum vitae. It's not an actual exam at that level, but anything, it would have to match up, because that's currently, like, we made, kind of to give you a little quick history of civil service and changes, our library clerk position that requires the clerk exam, which is an actual exam. The exam isn't really testing for the skill sets we need currently.
We've been round and round with that. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So they made the changes. They approved us to make the change to change the job spec to a customer service representative, because that's more of what that position does. But when we came down, they were like, but we're still going to use the library clerk exam, because that's the only exam we have. So it's like,
Okay.
well, that doesn't really help us, because you're still testing for the level.
Yeah. So does it mean that we can just essentially come up what we want in reference to the job description, but we can't actually post it until they meet with civil service? Is that what the idea is, guys? That we can talk about some of those requirements?
We can suggest changes, but no changes can be made, and a position can't be posted without it being approved by civil service.
So, I mean, in reference to our committee, though, we can, but amongst us, decide like what we want. Like, for example, the residency, you know what I mean? We can decide what we want.
That can be changed. That's an internal. So the residency, you guys can make the decision whether residency is required or not. That's not a city mandated.
Right.
That's an organization.
So the 8 years is what the mandated is, what the issue is that 8 years. Okay.
Right. And I think the other thing that we could do is look at that 2014 posting, just in terms of, you know, what are the never mind qualifications, but what are the qualities that we want, and tweak that, and tweak the, you know, update the description of the population of Albany and the service areas and the number of staff and all of those, you know, those hard facts that describe the position. But also, you know, a lot of times you'll see, you know, in executive positions where, you know, part of the posting is selling the location, right? And really, you know, pumping up how great Albany is, and, you know, seeking and, you know, kind of teasing out those qualities that we want in a candidate, you know, communication and community engagement, and, you know, what have you.
And don't forget, that's also what the interview process
Right.
is meant to accomplish as well. Is like, you have the general kind of ethereal overview of what the position should be, but then your interview is like, but this is, you know, yes, we want you to have 8 years experience, but tell us about your 8 years of experience and how did it work in your community, and touch base on, you know, what were your community partnerships looking like and stuff of that nature. So that's what you use the interview process.
Right.
To call out that information.
Right. I mean, you know, of course, the education piece and all the experience is just is very important. But I think the most important, as you just mentioned, is what was your community involvement? How did you foster? Did you foster, promote relationships? I was just listening to NPR and how, you know, as you know, the fines were punitive, you know, and it hurt a lot of people in the community. You know, it was very counterproductive on what you were trying to do, reach out to the community, but you weren't working with the community as far as fines and things that were going to put obstacles in their way of obtaining the information that the library had to offer. So, and this was a woman in Wisconsin, and it's on TED Talk. So if you want to listen to it. So I had an employee
this week come to me. There was an article written in the Smithsonian about how wonderful Memphis Library was. And her father brought up the article during the holiday break. He's like, oh, this is great. You know, they got rid of fines. They have a podcast. They do like a makerspace. And she's like, we've done that. And we've been doing that for a while. It's just like, so what every library is being called out for, like, yay, we did. We've done already.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. And that would be, I think, you know, obviously the website speaks for itself with, you know, really communicating really well all of those things that we do. but to, update some of what we include in the posting to say, we've got a podcast and we're involved in broadband and we're involved in, all these other community initiatives that are new since then.
So you have the job spec, but at the beginning, and that's what the consultant can help us craft is that opening paragraph, like, hey, City of Albany is looking for, Albany Public Library is looking for a new director. This is a little bit about the organization, and now here's the job spec of how it's being posted. And with it being a library position, most people in the industry are used to going through the civil service process. So that's nothing new to somebody at this level.
Yep.
Right. Well, like you said, just marketing, definitely gonna need a good firm to market Albany. So
we're good.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm still reeling from the argument about the lights in the park. I'm still like what? We have a lot of more problems going on in the city than lights in the park for 2 months. For 1 month. So I'm like really, I'm a little bitter about that right now. Like, are you kidding me? Right? But anyway.
We have other things to discuss. Yes.
Yeah. So
well, this I think is a good start.
Yes, definitely. We got a lot of the technical parts out the way, a lot of clarification. So thank you. As we said, that the executive session is the 7th, and our meeting is the 14th. So when do we want to meet again? If we say the 21st, that's Christmas week. I don't know how you all feel about that.
No, I would try to meet before.
Yeah, I'm checked 14th. Out by then. So the week of the 14th to 13th, the day before our meeting, or after the 15th, the 16th.
Let's see, I could
maybe the 13th.
The 13th, that Monday.
I can't.
Yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I can't do the 13th. I work on Monday nights.
Okay.
So if we would the 8th or the 9th work of the previous week?
Of next week.
That won't work for me.
Yeah, the 8th does not work. The 9th, I could probably make it work.
What about the 10th?
That's a Friday. I try not to do stuff on Fridays.
I hear you.
You said it first.
Yeah, I do too. Friday. I'm checked out on Thursday.
Would it be possible, since there's nothing stating that has to be done on an evening? Would anybody be willing to do a lunch meeting if it's just a quick, hey, this is our findings?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do a lunch meeting. Just what day? It's Wednesday the 8th or Wednesday the 8th?
Wednesday the 8th, I'm traveling all day.
Okay.
For one of my jobs. So I could do.
Can we do that Monday? Maybe?
The 6th? The 6th at noon?
No, the 13th, if it's during the day. Because if we're talking about a lunch meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Are we able possibly to do Monday, maybe lunch meeting on the 13th?
Monday or Brigitte, you said you try not to do things on Fridays, but does that include lunch?
No, lunch is good on Friday.
Okay. Do you want to do Friday the 10th? Or Thursday the 9th?
Does that work for you, Jay, right?
I can't do the Thursday. Maybe we can do
the Friday. I think they were saying the 10th.
Maybe we can do the Friday.
Yeah, the Friday the 10th. Friday the 10th at noon. At noon, good.
Sure.
Rebecca, can you send out the invite for that?
Working on it as we speak.
Awesome, you're so good.
And then from a point of process, with me being a newbie back on the board, am I allowed to send an email report to the people in this group to say, hey, I sent these emails, I made these phone calls, these are my findings in advance of the meeting? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay.
Because then we'll have your findings and we meet on the 10th for 10 minutes. Grab and grow lunch.
That would be awesome. Okay, great.
Yeah, sounds
Wonderful.
good. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Thank you so
do,
much.
We have
so
to,
do I get I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
John
Second.
Ray and second Donna. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good evening, everyone.
have a good
Good
evening.
night. Thank you,
Looking forward
Melanie.
to next steps.
Okay. Bye, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank
Night.
you.
Can we stop the stream?
I'm trying.
Okay.